How you guys doing out there? So this is a video I've been wanting to do for a while. I want to talk a little bit about um, different frequencies, okay? So there's this whole movement that everybody's talking about, 432 hertz frequency. People are also talking about 528 hertz frequency, which is actually a 444 hertz frequency. And so, man, you could go down the rabbit hole with these things. I have a belief, and my belief is that all sound is sacred, okay? And that isn't to say that potentially there's science that could offer some evidence that a different frequency might enhance a particular thing or invoke a particular emotion or be good for healing for this particular area. That's something that I wouldn't argue with, but I would argue with the fact that if people say that there's like quote unquote bad frequencies, and then I'm just going back from some of my earlier primitive beliefs around so first thing I think of is Hazrat Inayat Khan. He's a Sufi mystic, and he was a world-renowned sitar player, and he gave up music altogether because and started teaching spirituality about sound and vibration. And he took music to such a level that he felt like he just more lived music and vibration. And if we think about it, the very first thing that ever existed in creation, this is part of their belief system, is sound. Because in order for anything to be able to be tangible or to be able to be seen, it has to vibrate. So anyway, what I really want to talk about is also how frequencies affect flutes or other wooden instruments. And so I always thought this was cool because people are really particular about, I want it in A440 hertz, I want it in A432 hertz, and this and that. Well, one thing to know about musical instruments, when you receive your instrument, it's very important that you know that you have to take the responsibility to be in the right temperature, because wooden instruments are affected by temperature. And so that's the main premise of this video, is to show you how they're affected. So here we are, we're making these flutes here, and I think most of them are actually tuned to A440 hertz. I still tune most of my flutes that way so they can play with pianos and other instruments. However, for me as a flute maker, I have to tune the flutes in a very temperature controlled room. So anybody who's thinking about making flutes or learning making flutes, know that key number one to make a flute that's on pitch, you need to have a temperature controlled room. You can't just do it in a cold garage, okay? And so we try to keep our shop, we actually keep it warmer than probably a 70-degree room, right? So that should be an average room temperature. Well, here I am in my cold basement, and I wanted to show you this thing because this is a 440 hertz flute, a 440 hertz flute. We have our tuner here, and it's probably around 60 degrees. Don't ask me while I'm bare feet and have a tank top down here, but it's probably pushing 60 degrees, not 70 degrees. I can feel the flute feels cold to touch. And so instead of setting this to 440 hertz, I set it to 432 hertz so I can show you guys how much that a wooden instrument can fluctuate in pitch based on the temperature of the room, okay? So I'm gonna play this bottom note here. This is an E, and again, I tuned it to 440 in a heated room. So here we are. So I want you to see this says 432 hertz. It's tuned to A432 hertz now. And everything should be, if it's in 432 hertz, close to the zero, as sometimes I put it a little sharp. So here we are. So I'm playing a little gentle, but you saw that. This is an A440 hertz flute. it's here reading at 432. I'm sharing this with you mostly because, first off, it's your responsibility, if you're a performer or whatever, to know that this is going to be affected by temperature. So, for example, I've done a lot of outdoor performances and things. What I have to do if I have a flute that's tuned to 440 hertz and I want to play with all the other musicians, I actually have to bring an electric blanket or a heating pad, something that I can actually, if my flutes are outside, I can actually keep them warm to touch so that they're staying on pitch, because it can be a real big problem with musical instruments. So again, it's your responsibility to know this. And it's also one of those things where people are really particular about, I want this pitch or that pitch. Well, guess what? If you have an A440 hertz flute, or if you were to say purchase an A440 hertz flute, or say you're shopping and you notice, oh, there's only A440 hertz instruments in stock on my website for whatever reason, or the one that you want is in 440, but you want 432, guess what? All you have to do is walk into a little bit cooler of a space or be outside in a little bit cooler weather, and you have a 432 hertz instrument. And so that's just something that I wanted to share with you guys. That pitch fluctuates here. That also means that that A444 hertz will also be able to be achieved on an A440 instrument. That just means if it's a little bit warmer than our typical 70-degree room, it's going to tune a little sharp. Not to mention breath pressure affects the frequency and the pitch of it. The softer you blow, the flatter in pitch it means. So A440, basically if you're reading a tuner, 432 hertz is probably about 70 cents flat of A440. So if you blow softer on the flute, you can potentially play it in 432 hertz as well. And then if it's cold and you're trying to play it on pitch to 440, you have to blow harder on the flute to bend that note. And so what I tend to do when I'm tuning flutes is, if I want it 432, 444, or 440, I always tune it probably close to 20, somewhere between 20 and 30 cents sharp of 440. And the reason why I do that is because if it's a little cool, it'll still be close to pitch, right? And you can always relax your breath. It's a lot more difficult to play a flute and have it sound nice if you have to wail on it in order to bring it up to pitch. It's a lot easier to tune it a little bit sharp and relax your breath and play gentler. That's exactly what I was doing to get this to read 432. If I blew a little bit harder, it would have been sharp at 432. And so now we're going to actually take this flute, we're going to take it upstairs, we're going to warm it up, and I'm going to play the same flute and show you how, once the flute's warm, it will actually play at 440. Okay? See you in a minute. So, okay, we're upstairs now, and warm the flute up a little bit. Probably would take a little bit longer to get it fully warmed up. I did want to add one more thing to what I was saying about pitch. When we talk about what are these are what we call Native American style flutes, and that makes me think of the indigenous people that came before chromatic tuners. And so I just wanted to add that into what I was saying. Previous to when people were tuning in pitch, what they would do is they would just make this instrument whatever that it turned out to be. They would just find their tree branch or whatever it was, and they'd have their certain way of putting the holes, and they would just play to whatever it was, and they weren't playing to a particular pitch. And I'm only saying that because I'm reiterating that all sound is sacred. And so I think the biggest thing I would encourage you to do, rather than research and who says this is this or that or the other thing, is feel it out. You know, these are our older spiritual traditions, right? What feels good to us? Close your eyes play an instrument, feel what it feels like. If you're listening to an instrument, maybe before purchasing, just listen to it, feel what it feels. Don't get too caught up into what everybody is telling you, because I have a very hard time believing that if it's a little bit warmer out and this is reading at a particular pitch, that somehow it makes it like it's unhealthy for you in some way, shape, or form. And or, you know, when people didn't read a tuner to tune their instruments, that there would be a potential frequency that was unhealthy for you. That stuff is, I don't know. I tend to believe that that's more man-made conspiracy theory type things. So anyway, here we are. Flute's a little bit warmed up, and we got the tuner tuned to 440 now. Now let's see where we're reading. Previous we were almost dead on 432. Now we're quite a bit warmer, and see where we're at. And so that's tuned about right. Like I said, it's probably could warm up just a little. And when you play it even just a little, it'll warm up and get a little bit sharper. But that's about how I like to do it. Medium breath pressure, because I like to play with a little energy. So I hope that teaches you something. If you have some 440 flutes that you wish we're in 432. Why don't you put them in the fridge for 5 minutes and then play away? Okay, take care.